Let's walk through how to set up surveys using Marketing Cloud Account Engagement, or MCAE for short. I'll show you exactly what needs to be configured in Salesforce and in MCAE to keep survey responses tied back to leads or contacts, so your team always has context. We'll also talk about when MCAE is a great fit for surveys and when it's time to bring in bigger tools. I'm Eva Mandic, 8 times Salesforce certified, delivery team manager and marketing practice lead at Arcus, and I've been in the Salesforce ecosystem for 6 years. And in this demo, I'll show you how to make MCAE work for surveys in a way that's lightweight, scalable, and it keeps your data where it belongs. Here's the key. Start with your survey strategy. If you're collecting quick, simple insights, like post-event feedback, interest forms, or engagement check-ins, and you don't need anything too fancy, MCAE is perfect. That's what this demo is for. But if you're building a more complex flow, think multi-page evaluations, branching logic, scoring, or targeting different audiences, then you'll want to reach for tools like Form Assembly, Form Stack, or even build a Salesforce screen flow hosted on Experience Cloud. Bottom line, right tool, right job. And today, we're going to make MCAE do exactly what it's good at. If you're already using Marketing Cloud Account Engagement, or even just exploring it, there is something you need to know. MCAE can only write directly to leads, contacts, or person account records in Salesforce. That means every time someone fills out the form, their latest submission overwrites the previous one. Gone. There's no history for your team. But think maybe about it. What if somebody fills out the same survey multiple times? Maybe they come back after an event. Maybe they update their interest quarterly. Or maybe they just really want to be engaged. And us as marketers, we love that. And that's why this setup, we're not writing responses directly onto lead. Instead, we are using a custom survey object in Salesforce, so every submission gets logged as a new record. You get a full history of how someone's responses change over time, and that's just gold for your marketing team. All right, so let's dig in. Let's talk about real-world use case for all of this. We'll call it the supporter engagement and interest survey. So what's the goal here? We want to understand our supporters better, what they care about, how they prefer to be contacted, and how they want to engage with us going forward. And why that matters. It matters so we can send them more relevant content and drive deeper involvement, whether that means signing up for a volunteer shift or becoming a recurring donor. What's the ideal time to send this kind of survey? Well, it can be right after a donation, following a newsletter campaign or event, or as a part of your re-engagement series when somebody's gone quiet. The big picture goal is to use these responses to segment your audience, personalize your outreach, and spot the champions, those who might be ready to give more or get more involved. Now, let me show you what this looks like in action for two kinds of supporters: a new prospect or an existing supporter. Let's start with a new prospect. Say my dog, Ljubo Beethoven Mandic. Yes, he's very involved in the community. He attended one of your events. And afterwards, you send a follow-up survey to learn more about who showed up and how they want to stay connected. So Yubo scans the QR code from one of your sessions, and it lands on this survey form here. He's going to go ahead and provide his information. He is going to say what he's most passionate about. Definitely food security. He's going to say he is going to get involved by spreading the word first, and he wants to hear from us on a quarterly basis. For now, he's not really looking to become a monthly donor, but who knows? Maybe that changes in the future. And some of the feedback he has is woof, and then he has this woof woof after he's fed well. So he's going to go ahead and submit the form. Right now, this is the back end of our Marketing Cloud account engagement. So I'm going to show you how the solution that we are going to set up in a bit is going to respond in your system first. So let's find Yubo. I'm going to go to my form. There he is. So you can see that a new record is created in MCAE. We can see his engagement right here under activities. And we've set up the form so it immediately syncs the prospect to your Salesforce CRM. In this case, Lubo is a new prospect, so he is created as a lead record. On the right-hand side, you will see that the survey is created. So this is our survey record, and we've captured his engagement. So boom, Yubo is now part of your ecosystem, and his survey response is logged on a custom survey record, not just scribbled over a lead. Now let's switch gears to someone you already have in your database. So let's say it's time for your quarterly check-in, a best practice for any org trying to stay relevant. You send out the same interest survey to existing contacts, and one of your previous supporters, let's say Andrea Bowen, opens the email. In this case, he will land on your form when he clicks the call to action button in your email. And once Andrea lands on the form, it's pre-filled with his previous responses. Now, that is a small touch, but remembering who they are makes a big difference. And Andrea decides to update his interests because now maybe he grows from a passionate advocate and wants to become your donor. So he said he wants to get involved. He already donated as a donor. He wants to hear from you now weekly because he is directly supporting your organization from his pocket. And he may consider becoming a monthly donor as well. He confirms he's not a robot. Very likely to be nowadays. And once he submits this feedback form again, let's see what happens in our system. This is his record in MCAE. We also see on the activity that he's completed the form. And now let's see how that reflects in your Salesforce system. So on his contact record, we see that he has another survey response for today. This is where you captured his new feedback. So now that you've seen how this plays out for both new and existing supporters, let's talk about how to actually make it happen. So here are the assets that we are going to build. First, we are going to start in our CRM Salesforce. We're going to go ahead and build out a new custom object called survey. To do that, you are going to first go in Salesforce setup. If you're a marketer and in your organization you have a dedicated Salesforce admin, this part you will want to discuss with your admin to do for you in the back end of Salesforce. Otherwise, if you are a solo admin or marketer, you can go ahead and do these steps. So once you're in the setup, go ahead and navigate in your object manager. In the upper right corner, you're going to click Create button, and you're going to hit Custom Object. The steps here are very simple. You're going to label your object. We said survey. We're going to give it the plural surveys. The object or API name is going to auto-populate. Go ahead and give this a description. You also want to decide on your features, whether you want to report on these surveys. So for that case, you want to allow reporting. If you, with your team, want to be able to chatter on survey records, you can go ahead and check the allowing chatter groups. I'm going to leave the rest of the settings as they are and save the record. Once I click save, you're going to be able to find your survey object in the object manager. All right, so that's the first step. Very easy. We created a custom object called survey. Next, we are going to go ahead and build custom fields for capturing the survey responses. So just like here, you see that this survey record has a name and it has questions that we are asking in our survey. Also, it has a relationship to a contact record and a lead record. So this right here, these relationships are what allows us to connect the survey to the appropriate people in your Salesforce CRM. So the way to build the relationships on your survey record is to go to Fields and Relationships and then build a new field. So you would go ahead and click New. You would select this as a lookup relationship. You're going to click Next. In the next step, you're going to choose the related object. So in this case, you will create two lookups, one for the contact. So you will choose for the first lookup related to contact. And then the next time when you repeat this process, you're going to do the same. Just change this step 2 to be related to lead. So I'm going to go ahead and click Next. Step 3 is populate basic information. So give this field a name. You're going to have API name auto-populate. The child relationship name is what you will see show up on your related list here. In this case, we have surveys. So I'm going to go ahead and click Next. In step 4, you want to establish your field level security. In other words, you want to provide appropriate users visibility into this relationship. So unless there are any strict rules in your organization on who can see what, you can go ahead and provide all of the profiles or all of the users visibility into this field. In the following step, you're going to choose a layout. So in here, we only have one layout. We're going to choose that one. And then last but not least, you're going to choose the label and the lead layout for which you want this related list to show. And that's it. Once you click save, you are going to see this lead field that is a lookup data type created in on your survey object. So you would do the same for the contact. If your organization doesn't use leads, then you can just create it on a contact record or object. The next step is to create all of the fields to capture answers to your survey questions. So for this survey use case, we decided to ask 5 questions. What causes are you most passionate about? How would you like to get involved? How often do you want to hear from us? Would you be open to becoming a monthly donor? And to share any thoughts or feedback. In this case, you want to first think about your field type. For example, somebody can be passionate about multiple causes. So if you want to allow them to select multiple causes, in that case, it makes sense to make this a multi-select pick list in Salesforce. We'll talk a little bit later how to connect multi-select pick list as a field type to Pardot. And so on. So I'm going to walk you through in this demo how to create one of the fields. The process is the same for all of the other fields, except you would choose different data type if needed. So let's go back to our object manager on a survey record. Just like we created a lookup field, we're going to go ahead and create a new field. In this case, we're going to choose this be a multi-select pick list. If you're unsure of any of these data types, you have here a nice help from Salesforce that specifies what exactly the specific data type means. All right. The next step, we're going to enter our label. I'm going to click Enter New Values. All right, that's enough for our demo. The rest, I highly suggest giving it a description if needed, and you want to leave the same. Next, we're going to go to step 3, where we establish our field level security. Again, unless your organizations have any security restrictions, if you're creating a survey where maybe there are some sensitive information that you're requesting, you want to be careful who you're providing the insight into this field. Also, if you don't want your users to edit these survey responses, you will want to go ahead and check this read-only box. Only make sure that your B2BMA integration user has the edit capacity as well. You're going to select next. And in your last step, choose to put it on your page layout. So on the front end, this is your page layout on the record in Salesforce. And then you will go ahead, click Save and New, and create the rest of your survey questions. Next, you would create these survey questions with the same process that I showed a moment ago onto lead and contact objects. So same process, you would just find a lead object in your object manager, go to fields and relationship, and go through and create new field. If you're not using leads and only using contacts, then you want to make sure you're on the contact object and you're creating fields from here. That is really simple. So we've created fields on survey, lead, and contact objects. And now this is where magic happens. So we want to create flows. We're going to have two flows on a lead and one on a contact record. And essentially what this flow is going to do, it's going to copy paste information from a lead to a survey record. So remember at the beginning of this demo, we said that MCAE can only write to a lead or contact or person account record in Salesforce. So we're using this flow to copy paste the survey from those objects and create a new survey record. So all you need to do is go home in your setup, search for flows, under process automation, select flows. If you're creating a new flow, which you should be doing, go ahead and click new flow in the upper right corner. You're going to click select from scratch. And this is going to be a record triggered flow. So this is going to launch when your records are being created, updated, or deleted. So you're going to go ahead and click create. Once you do that, you're going to land on this configure start node. In here, you're going to choose the object that is going to trigger this flow. So let's go ahead and start from the contact object. Now remember, contacts are existing people in your system. So every time MCAE writes the survey or any subsequent survey response to the contact record, what it's actually doing, it's updating the record. In which case you want to trigger this flow when a record is updated. Now for the entry conditions, you want to make sure that this flows only triggers when a specific condition is met, in which case you want to set up your condition requirements. Now, for these demo purposes, I already configured this flow. So I will show you the end result. And you can see how very simple and easy this flow is. So when I check my start node, here are all of our conditions that we need to meet in order to trigger this flow automation. So we want this to trigger whenever one of our survey responses changes. So in here, all of the fields that you created on your contact object, you will want to select them here under the field section. I'll show you how that looks like. So for example, the cause interests, this is the field on a contact. You can simply type it in, add it. For your operator, you're going to select is changed. and then you're going to keep your value as blank. Basically, you're telling this flow, hey, whenever one of these values changes, then trigger this automation. You want to make sure that this flow is set up to trigger every time a record is updated and meets the condition requirements. And also, you want to optimize it for actions and related records. So that is how you want to set the trigger for your record triggered flow. The next, you want to create records. So we are going to create our survey record. To add this component, you can simply click in your plus element, search for create, select your create records, give it a label, like we did here, create survey record, give it a description, and then you will want to set the rest as follows. We want to set these record field values manually, and we want it to write to the survey object. So first and foremost, you want to make sure that you are connecting your survey record to a specific person. So you want to map your contact field, the lookup that we just created a moment ago, and you want to assign it a contact ID from your triggering contact. So essentially what we're doing here is on your survey record, let's see for Yubo. Yubo is a lead, we want a contact. All right, so essentially you are connecting your contact to the survey record. And you're doing that by passing the ID, your unique identifier for contact, to the contact lookup. It's very simple to do. Again, you would just type in here a contact, and then for the value, you would go to triggering contact, so the contact that initiated this flow, and then you would look for contact ID. It's very simple. The flow user interface is very friendly. And for the rest, you would do the same. You would map all of your fields that you created on the contact record or object to your survey object. For the survey name, you can type in any type of value you would like. So in this case, I opted for 2025 engagement survey response. So this is essentially how you name your survey record. And so on. No matter how many questions you have in your survey, you can map all of them here in this one component. And that's it. That's where you end this magic, this copy paste that you did to create your survey record so that you can capture all of the survey responses for your existing contacts. Now let's move forward to the lead object. So you want to do the same thing. Oh, let me show you a little trick. So since you're here, if you are, let's say, doing something more complex with your flow and you want to start from somewhere for the new lead flow, you can go ahead and click Save as New Flow. And then you can start building up on this lead, on this flow that you already created. So in that case, this is the same flow or similar for your lead object. So record triggered flow can only trigger on one single object at a time. So in this case, we're choosing lead record. Now think about it. For your trigger, once a new prospect, a new person, in our demo we use Nubo, who went to the event and completed the form, he didn't exist in your system before, now he's created as a new record. In which case, we are choosing the created or updated. Somebody can still be a lead, for example, and they can complete the survey more than once, in which case you want to make sure that the update action is accounted as a trigger as well. So that is a little change from our contact flow. We have a record is created or updated. And then another change is for your condition requirements. Now I opted for formula here because it gives me a bit of a flexibility to work around McKay's sync behavior. And McKay's sync behavior works so that when a new lead is created, it first will send the email and required fields like first name, last name. It's going to create a lead in Salesforce. And then in a few minutes, it's going to sync all of the costume fields. So in that case, in a matter of like 2 to 4 minutes, you have 2 triggering actions happen. You have a create and an update. So we need to work around this entry criteria to trigger only once if it's a new lead record and our values on the lead record are changing within 5 minutes, we want this flow to trigger. So in this case, you are avoiding flow creating a duplicate survey entry. All right. So what this essentially says is that we're basically telling this flow, hey, if a new record is created and then updated within 5 minutes, don't fire again. So when we have that set in place, we're going to go ahead and add a create records component. You're going to map the fields from your lead to your survey record. The only thing you would change is this relationship field. So now, because this is a lead triggered flow, you want to pass the lead ID because you want to relate this survey to your lead, new lead that is created. So in our example for Lugo, you're essentially making a relationship between appropriate lead and your survey response. All right, that is it for the hard part, I would say. And either way, you saw it's not super hard. Now, let's do the thing that if you're already working with Marketing Cloud account engagement, it's probably a breeze for you. We're going to create a prospect field and create a survey form. If you're not working or if you're considering purchasing McKay, you're going to see how simple it is to do this. So in our account engagement app, we're going to go to account engagement settings. We're going to go to object and field configuration, prospect fields. Once you're here, to create a new field, you want to add costume field. So again, we would be creating our survey questions as custom prospect fields. I would give it a name, give it a custom field ID. So let's say cause interests, same example. Now you would map it to the appropriate Salesforce field name. So we created the names on the lead and on contact objects. One thing that I forgot to mention is that for the API names, you want to make sure that those are the same on the lead and contact object. This way, when you're syncing your costume prospect field in MCAE, you ensure that you can sync them to a contact or a lead record. So in this case, you would choose the cause interest field to sync it with. I already did that, so I don't see it in this long list, because if it's already synced, it's not going to show up. And then you would make sure that your type matches. So if the cause interest is a multi-select, you want to go ahead and make sure you select the multi-select field. And then you want to make sure that sync behavior is set to account engagement value. This ensures that every time Salesforce and MCAE sync, that Salesforce is going to adopt the account engagements values. And then last, you want to add all of your cause interest here. So from the front end perspective, let me go back. These are all of the values that we display here. Once you create a costume field, here is your end result. You'll see that cause interest is mapped to the cause interest field in Salesforce. We opted into account engagement value as a sync behavior. Type is multi-select. Here are all of our values that are passed. And so on. The process is the same for every field in MCAE. And then the last piece, we want to create a form. So you will go ahead and navigate to Content tab. You'll immediately land on your Forms subtab. And then you would click into Add a new form. This is a 5-step process. So I'll show you on the one I already created. First, it's going to ask you to some basic information. What is the form name? Which folder do you want to store this in for organization? And on which campaign you want to track your engagement metrics. So for forms, those are submission and error rates. Once you have that done, you would go ahead and place all of your questions or fields on the form field preview page. One tip, make sure that you select in the advanced settings, always display even if previously completed. Do you remember when I mentioned for existing contacts, it's a really nice user experience when they see their pre-filled results. This way they also get reminded what are the interests that I've submitted last time, so that they can change it appropriately. In this case, you always want to make sure that even if they completed the form, these same questions are displayed. If you don't select this, then when a prospect is cookied, it's not going to display the field that they already completed. You want to, if you're labeling a prospect field, let's say cause interest for your internal users, you can make it a question format for your external constituent, in which case you want to populate label that way. And you also want to ensure type and the format are there. You would do the same for all of the other fields. For the look and feel, this is where you style your form. The layout template is what controls the color of the field names, the sizes of these boxes. So if you want something really neat, fancy with your branding standards, then you want to make sure that you develop the layout template, which you can configure in this other section in here. You can control the label of your submit button. You can add any text above, below form. You can here control some of the styling, but it's really basic. And then you want to make sure to add bot protection by enabling reCAPTCHA. And you also want to ensure to include not you link. If you are displaying this on, let's say, an event with a tablet, and you have multiple people using that same device or tablet to submit this feedback, make sure to check kiosk or data entry mode. This way, it ties the right response, or it doesn't cookie the previous respondents' answers. After you're done with the look and feel and some of these advanced settings, last step is to add a thank you content. So what displays as a thank you page after somebody submits the form. And this is pretty cool with MCAE forms. You can automate actions. So you can add these prospects to the appropriate campaign with the member status. You can assign it to your sales queue or a specific sales member who, say, needs to maybe follow up. You can send out the responder email. If anything, you need to add this action here. This one is the most important one, assign to user, and then select a user. Why this is important? It's because this is what's going to trigger immediate sync to Salesforce. Now, if you don't want these responses to sync to Salesforce, then you don't need to add this. But this entire work that we did here today was for the purpose to capture every engagement with your constituents. So make sure to assign this to a user. And then last but not least, you want to confirm and save. So what did we just build? A lightweight, repeatable survey experience that flows seamlessly from MCAE into Salesforce. And it also captures every response along the way. This setup gives you a full history of supporter engagement. It helps you act on real feedback and lets you personalize every step of the journey without needing complex tools or external platforms. And remember, surveys aren't just forms. They're part of your engagement strategy. When somebody takes the time to respond, that's your chance to build trust and follow through with something meaningful. I'm Eva Mandic, and if you have any questions, ideas, or want to partner on bringing this to life in your own org, fill out the form linked at the end of this video. Thank you for watching and happy building.